Hi, this is Nick Dawson from Talkhouse, and you're listening to the latest episode of Nobody's Ever Asked Me That. It's the spin-off series of the Talkhouse podcast where I talk to filmmakers, musicians, comedians, and writers and ask them questions they've never heard before in an interview, in an effort to discover a different side of them and understand them better. Today, my guests are Dreimanis and Leah Fay Goldstein. The reason for this conversation is that Dreimanis and Goldstein are the stars of a quirky, decidedly unconventional romantic comedy called Middle Life that starts with a serious car crash and has plot points involving bidets and an undiagnosable urinary dysfunction. Dreimanis and Goldstein are charming and have great rapport, which is not surprising to people who know them as the lead singers and creative dynamos behind the blues-tinged rock band July Talk, who rose to prominence in 2012 with their excellent banger-filled self-titled debut album. From the start, July Talk stood out because of the striking interplay between their singers' very different voices, Dreimanis' gravelly growl and Goldstein's gentle, honeyed vocals, and the palpable chemistry between them that was all too apparent in both music videos and the band's live shows. Inevitably, there was speculation for a long time as to whether they were a couple. It turns out they are. Not only that, but the release of Middle Life happened to coincide with the birth of their second child. Post-pandemic, Dreimanis and Goldstein have consciously diversified their creative work. Following the 2023 release of the fourth July Talk album, Remember Never Before, Dreimanis appeared in Sinners as Bert, the homesteader who's the movie's first unfortunate victim, and also put out a beautiful solo record under the name Peter Dreams, which continues the musical evolution evident in July Talk's output toward a gentler, more introspective sound. Middle Life is the first time Dreimanis and Goldstein have acted together, but far from their first foray into film. In fact, this is their third collaboration with Middle Life's writer-director Pavan Mundi. Goldstein got her start in acting, playing the lead role as a petty, struggling actress in Mundi's 2015 comedy drama, Diamond Tongues, on which Dreimanis was the cinematographer. And he also shot Mundi's 2017 comedy, Sundowners, in which Goldstein has a supporting role. A little context. Pre-fame, Dreimanis ran a film production company with July Talk's bassist, Josh Warburton. I've been a July Talk fan for a long time, so I jumped at the opportunity to talk to Goldstein and Dreimanis. And I also have to acknowledge the heroic lengths they went to in order to make this conversation happen. They found time to talk with me in the midst of childcare for their toddler and newborn on a day when terrible air quality due to intense Canadian wildfires meant neither they in Toronto nor I in New York were able to go outside. Despite those obstacles, it was an amazing conversation, connected, substantive, and profound, that touched on such topics as generational trauma, loss, learning to trust one's innate wisdom, their emotional visit to the Mauthausen concentration camp, Goldstein dreaming new Angel Olsen songs, Dreimanis' rec hockey league for sensitive art guys, and much, much more. So, let's get started. I'm always really interested in people's grounding and their background. How much did the place that you grew up in sort of come to define how you are and how you see the world?
Interesting. I think it really informs me. I always feel like a bit of an outsider living in Toronto because I come from a city called Edmonton in Alberta, out west. And we're sort of, I don't know, I like to think of us as the Austin of Alberta, sort of the weird city. I mean, Austin's taken a strange tech turn as of late, but anyone went there about 10 years ago, you had this sense of sort of progressive people coming together within a state that traditionally had been more conservative. And that is definitely the case with Edmonton. I don't know, it's a very special place. It's just arts are really valued. So I feel very lucky to come from there. And I think the spirit and sort of ethos behind the way that I like to approach art, it definitely is informed from that place, which is very different from Toronto in that Toronto's the big smoke, no pun intended today. So sometimes that is an interesting feeling to kind of be from more blue collar, kind of elbows up kind of city and come to Toronto.
And for me, I think growing up in Toronto, it maybe gave me like an over exaggerated sense of like idyllic coexistence. It's probably similar to New York in that way, where it's just like feeling safe and held by a city where people come from everywhere and people are making it work. And I think especially with like young people and with the Toronto District School Board, like there's a real emphasis on love and peace and acceptance, tolerance. And I think growing up in that, it almost kind of like shielded the fact that the rest of the world and, you know, anywhere, it's not always like that
Mm-hmm.
in the grown up world, in history. Yeah. So I think because of that, like I have a real like soft, ever bleeding wound
Interesting.
when people can't just love each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's really interesting.
it feels really activated right now.
Yeah.
And especially raising young people.
Yeah.
And aside from that, like I was very blessed, privileged child being able to like study whatever I wanted, like going to the
Mm-hmm.
Royal Ontario Museum on weekends and learning about space or drawing or whatever, like taking lessons at the art gallery and uh, doing dance and doing pottery with like the Toronto Annex hippies, just really being encouraged to make art from a young age and then having access to like basically whatever you want. And then obviously those places are filled and like run by really cool people, really cool adults who want to share that skill with a younger generation.
What you said about the wound reminded me there's this incredible Charlie Kaufman, the screenwriter. He gave this lecture, BAFTA lecture, maybe 15 years ago, where he spoke about writing in the broadest sense. And he talked about how everyone has a wound and how that wound is like the source of their art and the specificity of who they are. And just wondering if you can sort of say a little bit more about how that wound that you described has sort of manifested in the work that you have done individually and collectively.
Yeah, I think I'm also gonna grab a Kleenex.
Do that.
I wasn't expecting to cry this like early on. I'll be right back.
Sure, sure.
Um, the wound,
The wound.
the wound. I mean, I think that there is an aspect of some generational things happening. Like I have grandparents who had to leave Poland and never go back. Like my grandfather was in a work camp called Mauthausen during the
Mm-hmm.
war, and he was arrested for being a political prisoner. He like was helping with an underground resistance newspaper and then got taken by the SS as a political prisoner and you know, just had some like crazy stories that were often spoken in Polish around me and then translated by my mom and just kind of like atrocious things that no child should be here.
Mm-hmm.
um but to like be raised by his daughter and both my parents and be around my grandparents who had faced such like harm and hate and suffering, but still managed to like build this beautiful life. I think there's like a intrinsic fear and like hypervigilance that comes when anything feels like it might be pushing on that wound. And I think that's like what I'm talking about, or why I'm like feeling what I'm talking about with the activation of these times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it just kind of like makes you hypersensitive. And the way it's affected our work, I think just like from the moment we realized that we could have some sort of, that we had a platform, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
trying to affect change and like trying to instill love. We have signs that we put up at our shows that are all about like love and acceptance and who is welcome and what's welcome. And that's like just basically like all people. And I guess we've just kind of tried to conduct our work life and the people that we work with and collaborate with. And I guess just like effort and thought and a lot of conversation and a lot of learning and unlearning around how we define this like mark that we're ultimately leaving throughout our lives and throughout our careers. Is that vague or do you
No, that's very. And it's funny. You got me thinking about. I love the stuff you've done with like Love Lives Here and the intentionality of your work and creating these spaces and the political engagement that you had. In the lead up to 2016 election. But then there's also the thing I'm the grandson of Holocaust refugees and the great grandson of people who were killed on the Holocaust, and my family never spoke about that stuff. And so you have me also thinking
Totally.
about the generational trauma that comes from unprocessed pain, and then the generational trauma that comes from pain that is maybe talked about without the ability to create a sense of care around it or intentionality. Yeah, there's a lot there. There's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot
Yeah.
there. Absolutely.
Peter, does your background, like, are your family Latvian originally?
Yeah, there's so many things, as a lot of North Americans are. But yeah, my dad's father's family is Latvian, and mother's family is pretty deep Canadian, and then half deep Canadian, half Welsh.
Interesting.
From Carnarvon. And yeah, I don't know. I think that from my family and my upbringing, less so maybe generationally, though, maybe this is more of a Canada thing, but especially like my grandfather who came from Latvia after the war. And I think I could say this about Leah's grandparents too. There was like a certain putting Canada on this massive pedestal of just loving this place where differences were celebrated and were sort of brought into the definition of the place. And I think our generation has reckoned with the blind spots within that and the kind of colonial backdrop that was sort of ignored. But to a lot of these people that were starting the families that we came from, it was just this absolute utopian land on the other side of the ocean that there's still to this day, you know, in New York or Toronto, you can walk out and go into a restaurant or a shop and not hear English. And I still find wonder within that. But I think from my family and my upbringing, something that continues is just a real rugged optimism and a rugged idealism in the face of, you know, horror. I think that sometimes on stage as a rock and roll band, I don't know, your shows can be a picture of how you want the world to be. You don't necessarily have to lay out a 20-point plan of how to get there, but you can throw a bunch of energy at the wall like you're painting a canvas, and it can wake people up and it can throw energy out and let it collide and explode and just be what it wants to be. I think it's an important part of it. My mother and Leia's father both worked in newspapers, and I think my mom is like a real rugged optimist. She like does her best to, hello buddy. We should probably acknowledge that we have a new member of the conversation right
Amazing.
now.
Yes. Yes.
A little newborn baby.
Hello.
But anyway, I think just using that optimism, even when things are at their darkest, there's been nights where we have to play shows after things like Charleston or things that like happened that like made you feel like you just wanted to curl up in a fetal position, and you walk on stage and you realize that actually that's the exact moment when you should turn up a guitar to 11 and, you know, spew joy all over a room and provide that catharsis and just a place to put energy. So yeah, I think a lot of that has served us both, and I think we share that, even though the way we approach it is vastly different.
This maybe is connected with that in some interestingly tenuous way, but what's the last or greatest adventure that you've been on? You define this as you see fit.
Making a rom-com was pretty weird.
Yeah.
No, but what do you think? Greatest adventure, Leah?
Greatest adventure.
It's hard not to say parenthood in this moment.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I guess to like go back to what we were just talking about at the beginning of this conversation.
Sure.
We had this German tour booked in 2020, I think, which then got postponed, obviously, to 2021. And then I think it got postponed again to 2022. And we decided to, I guess in that time, in the early pandemic time, I was doing a lot of like touching of wounds in myself and in my family. And we decided to take a trip to Linz and start the tour by going to Austria and visiting the concentration camp that the museum that's now there that my grandfather was at. And it was magical and horrifying. We watched Schindler's List on the plane ride over.
Wow.
Which I'd never seen. and was maybe an insane idea to like get on a plane with a bunch of German people and
Yeah.
Throw on
uh,
Schindler's List.
throw on Schindler's List. But it happened, and yeah, it was a really wild adventure, I would say. And I was left with this resounding feeling of like the way that I have agency in this situation is to create children who are full of love.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like the biggest fuck you to the energy that was in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of happened immediately. Like I remember we went through this tour. We got to have like a private tour. If you like have
Mm-hmm.
a family member who's been in one of these places, they will give you a personal tour guide and who can answer all the questions. And Nazis kept meticulous notes about everything, so they
Yeah.
can often like give you a lot of information. So yeah, we like met this really, really lovely Austrian guy who took us around, and then at the end of the tour, we got back outside and it had been this like really gray, like rumbly weather all day. And it just started pouring when we left. And almost instantly, like in that moment, that's when I had the like real feeling of, I mean, obviously this is like a question we've been going back and forth on for years. Like, do we have children? Do we not? What is the right thing to do? And yeah, and I'd say like in that moment was when I kind of like found resolve and was like, we need to make life.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And so yeah, so I'd say that was like the start of this big adventure, this big parenthood adventure.
Yeah.
And then we proceeded to do the German tour in the weeks following, and Leah was like
Yeah.
bringing up Mauthausen and going to Hitler's birthplace and the whole bit in the shows on stage, and it was so heavy and wild, but doing so out of love and like doing so out of community and cultivating more love. And also, at least within that time, it felt like the crowd was up for that conversation. Like there wasn't a resistance to it. It was more like
Mm-hmm.
we were all on the same team, but it felt really therapeutic and healing. And yeah, it was really an interesting tour. It was a crazy tour.
I would imagine that took a huge amount of emotional energy, and gearing up for that trip must have taken some work to feel like you were ready to do that.
Yeah, I'm kind of the person in my family who just is the one who has to do it. I'm the one who's like bringing things out of the shadows and putting the light on them. And so because of that, I guess it's just like, have you ever had a thing that you just feel like you really need to do and it's the right thing to do? And because of that, like how hard it is kind of lost on you.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like we were across the ocean one minute, just like making these plans. And then the next minute we're like eating French fries on a patio where the waiter's like, oh, you're 5 minutes away from the apartment where Hitler was born. And we like swam in this lake that we're like, probably swam in this lake. It's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
And even talking about it now, it's like, that's crazy. But then we were just there and we were doing it. I don't know.
I think to add to it as well, I think we've also, especially since COVID, had a really thoughtful experience of understanding sort of blind spots of history. I think you're raised into this understanding of the good guys and the bad guys. And then, through studying colonial history and studying all kinds of background to, wars that are taking place today, you just recognize there's such evil on any side of a war like that. And the indoctrination that happens to exploit the people that are ending up doing the harm with their own hands is just absolute travesty. And so studying that, I think, especially, Leah and I live in this home of her grandparents in Toronto, where they moved in the 50s after the war. And so they are sort of our beacon that we follow. They were creative people as well. And so I guess I never stopped learning. The trip was really illuminating. And I think for myself, it showed more of the myth within good and bad. And yeah, it was horrible. Yeah, it was intense.
I have a sort of a list of questions that I've ordered to hopefully intuitively and by chance, like the next question is, what are you trying to unlearn? And I guess as we're talking about learning, I'm interested to know what you are
Hmm.
focusing on to unlearn.
Where to begin?
I hear that.
I think I'm like currently reckoning with my relationship to productivity
Interesting.
and just my understanding of like self-worth through accomplishment,
Sure.
and not necessarily self-worth through gratification coming from others. I don't really have a problem with that. I have a problem with like I really need to accomplish something, even if it's small, in order to have any way to relate to myself, um, or consider myself worthy. So I'm trying to assess that and also see how it served me in life, and how it has allowed me to accomplish things that I both really enjoyed working on, and also have helped me nurture and define myself. And so I think a good instinct can also be one that needs assessing.
100%. Yeah.
And as your life changes and you're working more to cultivate your family, and your children's lives become far more important than your own, and these
Yeah.
things, your relationship to productivity in its traditional sense has to shift and change and transform as well. So I think I'm trying to assess that right now.
Mhm. Yeah, I've done a lot of work around that. I'm a workaholic, and my sense of self, my sense of worth definitely instinctively comes from work. And that's a thing I've been trying to unlearn and soften, I guess, over a number of years.
I don't know about you, but do you feel a conflict? Because I also find that work makes me happy.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
And so I find it to be a conflict within myself, where it's the classic like multiple truths thing, where it's hard to stomach this feeling of like work bad, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, the answer to so many things lie in the gray rather than the black and white. I think there's so many things that are inherently healthy, but taken to extremes are profoundly unhealthy and can slowly or quickly destroy us. So I try and think of myself as having value for just being rather than whatever I achieve or however productive I've been. It's more about intentionality of how I use my time. But what about you, Leah?
I feel like I'm trying to constantly unlearn the things I've been silently indoctrinated
Sure.
by and into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think right now is really a time where there's just like so many forces and opinions coming at you constantly through news and social media. And so now more than ever, I feel like, and probably this has always been true, but like trusting intuition
Mm-hmm.
feels really important. And I think it's painful also to like look back at the times and the ways in which I haven't trusted my intuition or I've questioned it, because often that feels like either an irrational or like an innocent
Mm-hmm.
or a childlike voice and place. So it makes sense that in this world, this patriarchal, capitalistic, go, 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 make that money world,
Yeah.
that we would be shoving that voice aside. Yeah. And I think just like in terms of where we're at now, where it's like just so obvious how broken things can get when you remain on this path,
Yeah.
it's like more important than ever to go back and try and figure out what that voice is saying and what's real. Like my mom, when I was a kid, would always be like, "What does your gut say?"
Right.
If I had some sort of conundrum,
Yeah.
and I think she was onto something.
Definitely. And I think a lot about the way that like we're unable to process in real time, like all the sensory stuff that we're taking in, how sometimes it comes out in dreams, but sometimes like that sixth sense, that gut thing, that instinct is this infinitely ancient instinct that, you know, it's a thing that is programmed into us. So that the
Mm-hmm.
idea that it's like childlike in some ways is counterintuitive, because it's actually this like incredibly wise thing that's telling us like, don't go in this direction, you know, stay away from this person, don't go down that alleyway, whatever it is.
But I also think that children are like the most knowledgeable and full of wisdom in so
For
many
sure.
ways. And like I
Yeah.
think about cultures who believe that, you know, because children are the closest to the other
Mhm.
world, that they are like elders incarnated and like the divine incarnated,
For
and
sure.
how like we come to this earth and, you know, having a newborn baby, it's like all they're doing is expressing in order to get their needs met. Like they're just a
Mhm.
ball of intuition and instinct.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like we're the ones being like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
What does this cry mean? What does this cry
Right.
mean?
Yeah.
But they know exactly like who they are and what's what. And then,
Yeah.
you know, the longer you spend on this planet, the more discombobulated you become.
This is true.
At least in our world.
Yeah.
At least in our version of reality and society.
Yeah, and the trajectory that, I mean, the fact that we're talking about unlearning, to me implies that the general direction that we're taking is problematic and that we need to examine that at least to a good degree. What efforts do you take to sort of stay sane and balanced in everyday life?
Hmm. The first thing that pops into my brain is that Leia already knows what I'm about to say, but I, I,
I think I do.
I play on a hockey team with a bunch of sensitive art men.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that.
There's like 100 recreational hockey leagues in Toronto. It's like probably the easiest place to join a
Mhm.
adult hockey team, and mine is like co-ed and full of a bunch of sensitive, really nice people that love supporting each other and don't care about aggression as the only way to express yourself. And it's just become the most incredible experience of sort of experiencing youth in a way
Mhm.
where you can do it on your own terms. Because playing hockey growing up in Alberta, I loved the game and I felt like I could fly, and I just had such a beautiful experience playing the actual game. But, you know, it was fraught with bullying, and it
Mhm.
was like hard to do the right thing and not feel like you were getting picked on or not literally getting, you know, beat up and stuff. And so being able to reapproach it and do it on your own terms and do it with people that like support you and provide care and love to someone when they're feeling anxious or feeling out of control of their emotions or unregulated within the space of a game that you thought you weren't allowed to do that in
Right.
is like transformative. Not to mention just moving your body and just absolutely, you know, using every breath in your lungs, and it just puts my brain exactly where it needs to be, and I'm very grateful for it.
That's amazing. What about you, Leia?
I thought you were going to say the Danielle Basada shower theory.
Oh yeah, that's a good one too. You should say that.
Tell me more.
Oh, just no one ever feels worse after they take a shower. So, like when you're in a funk, the answer is usually have a shower.
That's yeah.
But for me, I mean, similarly and differently, in the way that Peter has found this beautiful hockey community, the first thing I kind of decided to do with having more time in postpartum world and
Mhm.
more sense of self, I joined a Ukrainian folk choir.
Oh, amazing.
And yeah, when I connect with that community, I feel just like really healed singing in a choir, and just like I don't understand the words. I don't at all speak Ukrainian, but learning about what those songs mean and what they unlock. Most of the ones that I sing, they're pre-Christian and they've morphed over time, but a lot of them come from this really ancient place where they're about like honoring earth and asking for the sun to return and asking for safety in the storm and things like that that just feel really like human and beautiful.
Yeah.
Also, I think living with a toddler and trying to help them learn how to regulate emotions
Mm.
has actually been really helpful for me and is ongoing. But I think many humans, myself included, we just didn't learn how to regulate
This is yeah.
properly. And who knows
Yeah.
if this way that I'm like trying to regulate with my toddler is correct. Probably 50 years from now, all the parenting books will say different things. But just like the basic naming of emotions and tending to the nervous system and being present as the emotions come and go, that's like been pretty key, especially in this crazy fourth trimester time and
Mhm.
this like transformation of becoming a family of 4.
Yeah. What's something that you've lost that you think about a lot?
There's this brown leather jacket that I left in a food court in a mall in Calgary in probably like 2008. And I think about it constantly. Whenever I like go to reach for a coat, I'm like, I wish it was the brown leather jacket that I loved so much.
Does it symbolize something for you now?
I think it symbolizes the lack of stakes, a certain carefree era in my life where putting it on allows me to feel more relaxed and more free.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a pair of pink glasses for this exact reason, because I believe looking through pink glasses allows me to be more creatively free and like just exist happily and like not worry too much. And so I think
That's great.
these clothing can help with these things.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have them down there? You should put them on.
No, they're oh wait, I might. Here they are. I can put them on with these headphones on.
Hey.
Now I'm looking at the world in pink, rose colored, baby. It's a beautiful feeling. I started doing it on our record, Pray For It. I would go to our writing space and I would wear these pink glasses, different pair of pink glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt so free. I loved it.
That's really cool. Just shift things. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just a little bit. How about you, Leah?
Ugh. It's the knife. It's the pocket knife.
Oh,
I had this mother of pearl.
breaks my heart.
This mother of pearl pocket knife that haphazardly had my grandmother's anglicized first name carved into it. So it really marks like a specific time. But it's also spelt in a way that she never spelt her name,
Mm-hmm.
like with one L instead of two. So I wonder like who made it for her and at what point, and did she do it herself? And when I first moved into my grandmother's house, she had been living here with dementia, wavering but slow decline, and it had probably been about a decade. And they like both my grandparents had that like hoarder thing of like that war mentality of like buy these things in bulk now because one day you won't be able to afford them. Plastic bags, so like thousands of plastic bags of pantyhose, like all these things. And it was my job to kind of, and my mom too, but like I was living here and trying to make space for me and my various roommates. So I had to get rid of a bunch of stuff, and I think about that so much just in terms of like what I got rid of back then and what I would have gotten rid of now had I been able to do the same thing. But anyway, I had this knife that was like a mother of pearl pocket knife with my grandmother's name in it, and I took it as a good luck charm to a music festival that we played in St. Catharines, Ontario. And that night we slept in my mom's minivan, and in the morning it was gone. I have no idea where it went. I have like a secret hope that it's just somewhere
like tucked in that van
in this house in an old bag or something.
Okay.
But I think it's gone. But every time I'm at a secondhand store and I see a mother of pearl knife, I check it.
I often question whether the things that I have lost now are even more present with me, because like for me there's a video that I recorded of my daughter laughing for the first time when she was maybe 6 months old, and it was on one of those like little flip cams, and the file got corrupted and we just it's gone forever. But it is incredibly vivid to me. You know, we have old footage of my daughter from when she was really young, and like none of it's as special as that, but I don't really look at it that much. But like this clip lives rent free in my head, and it has this incredibly meaningful quality. And so I've tried to sort of like flip it as much as I can to make it that it's unlost in some ways because of its value to me. It's a little pretentious, but hey.
You're probably right, though. The things that you've lost are the things you think about. If you were to still have it, you know, the knife would be in some drawer somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thought. I like that a lot.
Yeah. When was the last time you had an epiphany? I have incredibly few, so I know this is often a challenging question.
The nature of your podcast here is that you get a lot of long pauses because all the questions are unexpected.
Yeah. I interviewed Stephen Merritt not that long ago, and
Brilliant.
and he gave me some pauses, which I loved. To me, it just means people are thinking, and I value that greatly.
I think for me, it was the first night I was able to sleep after the second child was born, which happened about a week later. And prior to that, I just was in some kind of crazy fight or flight,
Yeah.
keep the human alive mode, and just my own body didn't matter. So it didn't need to sleep.
Yeah.
And I was ordered by my midwife to try to get, at least 6 uninterrupted hours, which is crazy for a new parent who's making milk, because it's like your body will just wake you up.
Yeah.
Which it did. But in those moments where I was able to sleep for like an hour and a half or 2 hours, when I would wake up to feed, I felt like I was having these like wild creative downloads. Part of it was like the medicine of the milk and how it just like completely knew exactly what to do. I'm nursing both of my children right now of different ages. So my milk like physically like it does know who's who and what needs to be in it in order to put this one to sleep and wake this one up. And so it was that night. And it's like an ever scrolling, I'm not sure I could sum it up for you. I wrote it all down in the notes app of my phone.
That's great.
And then Peter and I went for coffee a few days later, and I was like, I need to tell you these ideas. And I need you to tell me if I'm fucking crazy or if any of them have any sort of semblance of sense. They weren't all mad.
No, not at all.
I'm sure not. I mean, it's kind of going back to some of the things we've been talking about of like this thing which deviates from conventional thinking, and like whether or not it's something that we recognize, like there's always great value in that. I ask people about dreams quite a bit, and there's a question that I thought of recently that I've only asked, I asked it of Stephen Merritt, but the question is like, have you ever created something in your dreams that has managed to be carried over to waking life, a song, a creative idea?
Leah does most of her writing in her dreams, actually.
Tell me more.
That's not fair. I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, I do feel like in terms of unlearning the dismissal of my intuition, sometimes I feel like the creativity wants to get out so badly, and I'm swatting it away with such skill that it's like the only place it can come out is in my sleep. And so there are a lot of songs that are on Gillette Talk albums that fully just came from a dream. And even I have this one song that hasn't made any albums yet, but in my dream, Angel Olsen wrote it.
Okay.
And I was watching an Angel Olsen music video, just totally feeling like, oh, what a great song. And I woke up and I was like humming it. And I was like, oh, I'm so excited about that song. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's my song.
That's amazing. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
That's not on an Angel Olsen record.
That's not an Angel Olsen song.
Yeah.
God, she's a genius.
Just love it.
How'd she come up with that line?
Yeah.
Stephen Merritt was telling me that he dreamt that before the first actual Nico single, there was another Nico single, and he was like, and then I woke up, and he like has a recording of it that he made. So I love that. It's incredible that our brains do that. I think that's kind of remarkable.
Yeah, and it's obviously, again, a muscle to be able to connect with that part of yourself.
Yeah.
And I think to be able to do it enough and remember dreams and continue those kind of conversations with yourself as a way of accessing your subconscious. It's not easy.
What about you and your dreams?
Honestly, I don't feel like I've like gotten ideas and been able to sort of find ideas through my dreams. I mean, like a lot of musicians, most of my dreams are insane bad shows, like just the worst. I had this one show dream where my dad was the guitar tech, and my dad's never played guitar in his life.
Right.
And I was playing to the ocean.
Wow.
Like the stage was like was just facing the ocean, and then there was a crowd of people like off to the left also facing the ocean, like craning their necks to see the stage. And I turned around and it was like a pile of amps, like masses of wires. And my dad's there being like, and like plugging this one into that one. I was like, what are you doing here? Like, I love, my dad is the most capable human being, but not necessarily
He's
within
not a guitar
guitar technician. But I had another one where I was playing a solo piano gig, and I was in those catwalks above the old theaters, but I was up there and the crowd was down there, and no one could hear correctly. And it was just, it's like a lot of that kind of stuff, or, you know, things are going wrong. And what I dream about is just the anxieties coming out.
Yeah, I hear that.
But I think it's kind of beautiful because maybe, like, I've had things that traumatize me happen in my life. And then my dream self kind of has to relive through exposure therapy the thing over and over again. And the way in which I react becomes more and more attuned to what needs to happen. And so there's been times where there's a crisis that's happening, but I can see everything that I'm doing, and it's like the right thing to have happen. And I solve the problem in my dream. And then because I've only lived it once, but then I've lived it 20 times in my dream, it heals the hurt, and it like makes me feel more prepared. And so I feel like the recurring everything going horrible on stage dream is probably the thing that has allowed us to remain in a band. Because there are times where we're playing and things start to drift astray or go wrong, or you're like fully in your head and you feel the crowd slipping away, but like the ability to keep coming back to like the present moment and stay in it, I feel like it's probably helped you in the long run.
Like that muscle memory is there from those trauma dreams, basically.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe so.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
I have one last question, if that's okay. What's the first thing that you can recall that you felt proud of creating? It could be a song, a little story, a drawing.
What do you think, Leah?
I need a minute.
Okay.
I think weirdly for me, the thing that made me think of this is like there's a drawing that I made when I was maybe 5, and I kind of did something that ruined it, and then I just like ripped it up. Like the moment of realization that I'd made something good only came after I realized that I tarnished it.
I love that you realized that there was something to ruin, therefore there must have been something sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. The thing that comes to mind for me is that my dad worked as a consultant in schools. He'd go to classrooms where kids, you know, had autism or Asperger's syndrome or various behavioral challenges, and he'd help the teachers develop plans to give the kids the best shot at learning and just having a positive experience. And one of his colleagues was an audiologist who helped kids with speech impediments. And she had in their kind of public school office this old recording studio. And I would have been like 13 or 14. And one day the public school department gave new gear. And so all the old gear from the 70s was going to get thrown out. And my dad brought it all home in the trunk of his car. And I had no idea it was coming. And I just came home and he had unloaded these speakers and these microphones. And I was just like, it was the single greatest day of my life at that point. And so I set it all up, and I had the wherewithal to kind of understand how to plug it in from friends that had shown me this and that. And my friend John, who unfortunately I've lost a few years ago, sang Fake Plastic Trees by Radiohead, and I recorded him into these microphones, and we had the speakers set up, and we played it through the speakers, him singing it on electric guitar at 13 or something. And like no recording that I ever do in my life will measure to the level of like how grateful I was to just be able to play and document someone that I love. Like I can hear his voice to this day, and I don't have the recording anymore, but just that feeling of the ability to document, and having obsessed over LPs since like the age of 5, and being able to be a part of that process somehow, and just how the speakers looked and everything. Anyway, that's really comes to mind now.
That's beautiful.
I just want to also speak to what you were saying, Nick. When I was 6 and in grade 1, it was like the first time we would ever write in our journals. And I was writing about the Little Mermaid. And it was those split pages where you have the space for the drawing on top and the lines on the bottom. And I drew a picture of the Little Mermaid, and her tail went into the line part. And I lost it.
Yeah.
I had done the entire drawing, fully colored in, still sitting there. Everyone else was playing. I was just sitting there and realized what I had done. And it's nobody even told me, you can't draw on the lines. I had a great teacher. She would never have said that. But anyway, having that happen and the shame and the tears spent on that situation was so insane. I still have it somewhere too. Anyway, I feel like I remember things that I made as a child, but I'm not sure I remember feeling a sense of pride over them. It's just sort of making and enjoying that process, which is really nice to think about. But I made a lot of weird videos when I was a kid, and I had a show called The Leah Show. And I would have friends on it, and it was just commercials. I think a lot of kids with a camcorder in the 90s did this as well.
Yeah.
But when I was in university and taking video art for my final project, I made a video called Idioms Visualized or something like that.
Interesting.
And it was these play on word things where it's I asked all my friends to star in it, and it was swapping spit was 2 people literally spitting into each other's mouths. Eat your words, my friend wrote a sentence and then ripped up each word and ate it. Drowning in tears, I had a friend cry into a bowl and then shove her face in it. Anyway, that kind of liar, liar, pants on fire. I did set a pair of pants on fire on my Montreal balcony.
Wow.
And the final thing you hear in the clip is the sound of a bowl of water dousing the flames and falling on the ground beneath. But anyway, I remember it got nominated for a category called Most Art Video Art, which means absolutely nothing. But it got to screen as a short at the Park Cinema in Montreal. And I didn't win the category. This person who ate a bouquet of flowers and then barfed it back into the vase won, which is really great too.
Art is subjective.
It was more art, video art than my art, video art.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me. This has been such a pleasure to spend this time with you. I so appreciate your work in, its increasingly multifaceted modes, from film stuff, music, all of it is really meaningful to me.
Thank you so much, Nick. Appreciate it.
Truly been a pleasure.
Thanks so much to Peter Dreimanis and Leah Fay Goldstein for talking with me, and thanks to you for listening. Middle Life is now in theaters in Los Angeles, expanding to New York City and beyond from August 7th, and the couple's first cinematic collaboration, Diamond Tongues, is available to stream. July Talk's superb back catalogue and Dreimanis' solo Peter Dreams record are available wherever you get your music. This episode was produced by Myron Kaplan, and the theme music is by The Range. Nobody's Ever Asked Me That now has a Substack, so head to nobody'severaskedmethat.substack.com to check out all of our past episodes, plus subscribe to get access to exclusive audio and video content. Next week on Nobody's Ever Asked Me That, my guest is cinematic iconoclast Nicholas Winding Refn.
I wish I could live another 50, 75, years. I would love to see what happens. I love being alive. I love life. I love waking up every morning. Like anyone, I fear death again, having tried it already.
Yeah.
Not that I'm afraid of dying, but I'm afraid of all the things I'm going to be losing out on.
Yeah.
I think that the world is always interesting. I'm a little bit saddened by all the ignorance, the celebration of ignorance, and the inequality that's spreading through our various systems. I think it's a shame that that's happening, but then everything has to switch in modes. Hopefully, something better will come out of it.
That's next week on Nobody's Ever Asked Me That.